you know, go to work, deal with the kids, this and that. And I would literally, once I got home and handled everything,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the night, it would literally just be stumbling into my room, making Isha, and I would make a long tahajjud before I went to sleep. And
Mm.
then that tahajjud, I would literally, like, that was when I poured it all out. Right? Use the
Mm.
Quran to connect it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And literally, like, that sajada, that prayer was probably soaking wet with, the
Yeah.
tears and everything. And
Mm.
I would always go to bed with Surah Al-Baqarah playing, right? Literally just have
Mm.
it playing, and that was how I could go to sleep. So that even in the initial stages when it was like, I don't even know what to do, which way to go, those were
Mm.
my two main states. Tahajjud, and then listening to Surah Al-Baqarah as I went to sleep. But
Mm.
then, as I went on in my journey, different ayats started to really stand out. And when I think about it now, they were really like signposts. And I love what you said about, the Quran speaking to us in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the way my mind works is I'm always looking at something to see like what's the lesson, what's the rubric, what can we like, how can we apply this? And for me, it was a few key ayat that became literally the guiding ayat of my life and of my work. And the first
Mm.
one was the ayat from Surah Al-Zariyat, right? I have not created the jinn nor the mankind except to worship me alone, Allah says. And
Mm.
thinking about this, like I'm thinking on purpose, right? So it's like, okay, I have not created the jinn or mankind except to worship me alone. That's
Mm-hmm.
my purpose statement in my work, my life, everything that I do. Because
Yeah.
literally, if you use that as a compass truly, like
Right.
truly everything that you do has an opportunity to be ibadah. If you're doing it with
Mm.
the intention of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you
Yeah.
understand that no matter what you go through, no matter where you are, He created you for worship. So
Yes.
how can you use that circumstance, that situation, that breakdown as an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for worship? So that's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about nafs, like really just cultivating and purifying our nafs,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we go through things and we can get reactionary, right? We
Mm-hmm.
can, be done wrong. We want to, get back at the person who did something or said something. We feel it injustice.
Right.
And while that can be temporarily satisfying, it doesn't help us, right?
True.
So the ayah, so the Furqan, that when the servants of the most merciful, right? There are those who walk upon the earth with sedateness and humility. And when the foolish address them, right, with foolish words, kulluhum salama, they say to them, peace. They don't get
Mm.
pulled in. They don't, go back and forth. Okay,
Mm.
that's where you want to be. You can be there by yourself, you know?
Right.
So that helped me, many times to restrain myself and to say,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm focusing up here. You can
Yeah.
play in the mud, but I'm going to focus up here.
That's right.
So that was a
Mm.
key one. And then when we talk about amal, right, our actions,
Mm-hmm.
the ayah is al-am, where
Mm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, tell them, my service and my sacrifice, my life and my death, they're all for Allah, Lord of the
Mm.
worlds. Like, when we think about the things that we do in our life,
Mm-hmm.
how much of our to-do list, how much
Right.
of what we put our energy and our time into, how much of what we sacrifice for is truly for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yeah.
right? So really focusing on that, subhanAllah. And then thinking about how we're guided through this life, right? Because it can be dark, this world can be dark.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the ayah in Surah An-Nur, which I
Mm-hmm.
love. This is one of my favorites. Where Allah said,
Mm.
Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth, right? And it goes on
Mm.
to describe the example of His light being, like a niche, and within it is a lamp and all of that.
Mm.
But the interesting thing is that the tafsir will tell you that that niche is the chest of the believers, and that lamp is
Mm.
the purified heart, right?
Allahu Akbar.
So it's like Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth, and
Mm-hmm.
He gives that light, to the believer to
Yes.
hold on to and to guide him, you know, in life. So that's something that I really go back to over and over. Allah is the guiding light. And he will put in your chest, he will put in your fitra what you're supposed to do in different situations. And just the last one, you know, when we think about redemption, and especially on the healing journey, and we just mentioned like people feel shame and, you know, they feel regret. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said in Surah Zumar, "O my servants who have transgressed upon themselves," right? By sinning. And that's what we do when we sin. We're sinning against ourselves.
That's right.
But he said, don't despair, right? Never despair of the mercy of Allah, right?
That's right.
He forgives all sins, and he's truly all forgiving, most merciful.
That's right.
So when it comes to the Quran, like this, it literally is so rich with healing nuggets, with guidance, with support, with anything that you need if you're looking at it with the right lens, inshallah.